attended the debate and came and said hi, but Herman Cain. I think he had just finished running for president, or he was still running for president at the time, one of the two. And it was unannounced, and he was very gracious. I went up to him and introduced myself, and we had a brief conversation. But he passed away from coronavirus just in the last day, and my condolences and heart go out to his family, if others are affected, of course, and I know that he was a inspirational hero to many Coloradans, both in the business sector and many conservative Coloradans. He was really an icon and a giant, and we mourn his loss as well. A brief update on where we are. We had 46,204 total positive cases, and we are doing okay by the national standard, right? I mean, we have kept things safe enough where we're able to live life, and kids are going back to school in many places, and youth sports and camps, and being able to go to work, and we're Coloradans are being smart. They're wearing masks. They're avoiding going out when they don't need to, and I really am confident that will continue to bear itself out in the numbers. And there's when there's a few exceptions to that, it gets all the attention in the press. I get that. That's just the nature of it. And I want to start today by announcing that the Attorney General's office has issued a cease and desist letter to Live Entertainment. That's the company responsible for that large super spreader event that we saw in Weld County with somewhere around 4,000 or 5,000 people. Under current guidelines, in most areas of our state, the maximum for an outdoor event is about 175 people with at least 6 feet between them and social distancing. That's not between every person, right? That's between parties. Like if a family of 4 comes, they're in one place, and then another family of 3 or 4 can be 6 feet away. I was at one such well-done event today that I want to highlight. I was in Colorado Springs this morning, Olympic City, where we proudly opened the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Museum. Years in the works. Dick Celeste and Mayor Suthers, the commissioners, so many philanthropists that stepped up, the business community, the state, the Office of Economic Development and International Trade. Really a crowning achievement. When travel resumes normal, and this will be a site for international visitation and national visitation, part of the Colorado experience for people who come here. They'll enjoy Garden of the Gods, the Air Force Academy, which is also having some major improvements, the Olympic Museum. Of course, they'll enjoy the Denver metro area, the mountains. Really a big part of putting Colorado on the map. And one thing I wanted to share of that celebration is just how well it was done. So it was outdoors, of course. The chairs, every chair was 6 feet apart. There were probably 80 people there or so. Everybody was wearing masks. And it really caused me to reflect, and I shared this thought with the residents of El Paso County in my remarks at the opening of the Olympic Museum. There's 2 ways that this virus can win, and we can't let it win either of these 2 ways. First of all, we can't let it win by infecting and killing more people, right? Obviously, that's the one we think about. We have to defeat it because it is a deadly virus. It hospitalizes people. Some make it, some don't. We can't let it succeed at its goal of hospitalizing and even killing more Coloradans. But the second thing is we can't let this virus hold us back from living our lives. And that means being able to work and being able to go to school and being able to celebrate the opening of a museum. None of those things are going to look exactly like they did. Because if they did look exactly like they did, the virus would succeed in its first goal, hospitalizations and death. But we also can't let it succeed in preventing us from living fulfilling lives, productive lives, lives that allow us to have that human connection in a safe way. And that's really what these health guidelines and recommendations are all about. It's about how we wear masks in public, we're not cowering in our homes. Again, some people want to stay home, and they should. My parents are. They're 76 and they're avoiding going out. Although my mom went to the dentist the other day and was nervous about that because she had an abscessed tooth and had to take care of it. So a lot of people are staying home when they can. But for others, you know what? It's not a time to surrender or cower. It's just a time to exercise caution, meaning wearing a mask at all times, being careful, staying 6 feet from others, avoiding groups, really all of those things. So we can't let the virus win by sending so many Coloradans to the hospital that it overwhelms the capacity and causes undue death and loss of life and destruction. We also can't let the virus win by destroying our way of life. And together we can accomplish that by creating a sustainable way to live and being smart and taking the precautions that we need to win. And I'm confident that here in Colorado, we will. We've been saying for a long time that, a lot of what we need to do with regard to the virus is take extra measures to protect our most vulnerable populations, but this can affect everybody. And, we've seen some of the behavior that's led to increase in the rates among young people. That was the initial surge. There's two issues with that. One is, of course, young people don't live in isolation, 20 to 30-year-olds. They associate with people of all ages. And as we've seen happen in some of the other states, the initial surge was 20 to 30-year-olds, and then it later led to older residents getting it as well. But also, it's not something that you want to get, even if you're 20s and 30s, because, the odds are good you'll make it through it, although there has been loss of life in all age brackets. We're learning more about persisting damage to vital organs. And nobody knows what that means in 10 years or 30 years if you're 10 years old. Nobody knows what that means if you're 20 years old. Does it shorten your lifespan? Does it mean you can no longer run marathons? But we're seeing evidence that COVID attacks, of course, the lungs, causing the inflammation. There's people that have diminished lung capacity many, many months after the initial infection. We're seeing the impact on the brain. There's 300 studies from around the world that showed neurological abnormalities in COVID-19 patients, including, again, well after the infection is cleared, headaches, loss of smell and tingling, strokes and seizures. And they've seen that in as much as 50% of recovered patients. There were recently 2 German studies that found heart abnormalities in COVID-19 months after recovery. I think we saw that actually in a Major League Baseball player recently. I follow baseball, and he wasn't a Rocky, or I remember his name, but he was a pitcher for, I think, another team. I think he was a pitcher. Had coronavirus, recovered, but has persisting heart issues. And so, and at this point, nobody knows whether that resolves itself in a matter of months, years, or never. In fact, out of 100 adults that were studied, 78 of them had heart abnormalities after coronavirus. So that was, really a wake-up call, and should be for people of all ages. The chair of the American College of Cardiology, Dr. Tom Maddox, said heart inflammation can lead to weakening of the heart muscle, and that can have an impact in abnormal heartbeats and other effects for a long time. So no one's invincible. Young people are not invincible. And we all need to take the precautions that we need to defeat the virus and not let it win. Not let it win by killing us, not let it win by destroying our quality of life. We have to learn, and we are learning every day, how to live with this threat, manage this threat, minimize this threat, and be smart about it. I am so proud of the way Coloradans have stepped up to help those in need during this crisis. We launched a COVID relief fund, helpcoloradonow.org. If you'd like to make a donation to that, I want to talk about some of that great work, but I also have an exciting announcement about that today. The furniture store, IKEA, is calculating the unemployment claims submitted by their employees and donating that money back to the COVID relief fund. It's close to about a $1 million. It's close to, well, I burped in the middle, so I'm going to restart that one in case anybody wants to run that, giving credit to the largest, one of the largest donations to the COVID relief fund. I'm glad to announce today that furniture store IKEA is donating close to $1 million to COVID relief here in Colorado. Through the COVID Relief Fund and helpcoloradonow.org, this is one of the largest donations that'll have a major impact on helping those that need help the most because of the health impact of the coronavirus and the economic aftermath. I also want to give a few examples of the important work that's being done with the helpcoloradonow.org resources. It's supported programs in all 64 counties. I visited programs in Weld County and Larimer County, in Mesa County, just in the last couple of weeks. Additional recipients include the Rotary Club of the North Fork Valley Foundation that got $3,600 to help take fresh food grown by North Fork Valley farmers and providing it to local families in need. The Aurora Community Connection, $50,000 that can help rent and keep families in their home. 28 families helping with rent and 42 families connected to rental assistance that was able to allow them to stay in their home while experiencing a loss of income. Eastern Plains Health Consortium, which is a collaboration of rural hospitals in Cheyenne and Elbert and Kiowa and Kit Carson and Lincoln and Logan and Morgan and Phillips and Sedgwick and Yuma, $15,000 to have a centralized call system where folks can be connected quickly to get the medical care that they need, really fostering inter-hospital collaboration among our rural hospitals. So these are the kinds of projects. Over $22 million has been raised thanks to your help at Help Colorado. Over $22 million has been raised thanks to your help at helpcoloradonow.org, thanks to philanthropic donations and businesses stepping up to make a difference for our fellow Coloradans. We are Colorado strong. With that, I would be happy to take some questions. So let's turn it over to the moderators and we will open up the lines for some questions.
Hello, Governor. I'm Jesus Carrasquel from Noticias Univision.
Hola, Jesús.
In Spanish, Governor, la Oficina del Fiscal General envió una carta al organizador del concierto masivo que se realizó en el condado Weld, donde le prohíbe a esa compañía hacer otros eventos futuros que violen la orden ejecutiva de salud pública. En base a eso, ¿qué piensa hacer usted al respecto?
Sí. En todo nuestro estado, ahora no es el tiempo para tener eventos peligrosos, porque el precio es nuestras vidas y es un precio demasiado caro para la disfrutación de los eventos normales. Pero también hay una responsabilidad en la gente, con cada coloradense, que no deben asistir a un evento con mucha gente. Y tenemos reglas en nuestro estado y las reglas tienen razones. Y las razones para las reglas de salud son solamente para salvar nuestras vidas y también salvar nuestros puestos y economía. Thank you. Next question.
Governor Polis, it's David Clue at Denver 7. A Denver District Court judge will be deciding here in the next 15 or 20 minutes whether to support or not your executive order to move bar and tavern last calls to 10 p.m., as you know. The Tavern Association of Colorado sued because it's convinced executive orders like this will permanently close another 40% of its member bars. What do you say to the industry that may very well be blaming you for the closing of so many small businesses?
Well, I agree completely that it's outrageous that bars have to close at 10 o'clock and that we can't have our normal nightlife. I'm as upset as every Coloradan about a lot of things. I'm upset I can't go to Rockies games. You know, the weekend that skiing had to close, we had planned to go skiing that weekend with our family and we weren't able to do that. This is a tough time. Nobody in the country has figured out how we can have that kind of freewheeling, active nightlife during a pandemic. I hope we can figure it out. We'll work with responsible bar owners to do that. Many bars are able to, they're staying in bed, they're able to serve food, they still serve drinks. They can certainly be open past 10. But a basic fact of life, everybody knows this intuitively, is that, and the state of inebriation, in fact, getting drunk, one of the main reasons that people go out to these nighttime environments, is inconsistent with maintaining proper social distancing and being safe. And in the states that have moved forward with opening bars more, they've had to pull back because they've led to hot spots And they've had to cancel a lot more. So, I mean, in Arizona, not only did they have to close the bars, they closed the gyms, they closed the movie theaters, they reduced capacity at restaurants. We want to avoid those outcomes in Colorado based on the data that we have from the contact tracing and the information, the national data about sources of infection and the variables in the different areas of the country. This is one of the minimal interventions, the least damaging, the least bad choice of many bad choices that will allow the economy to remain open and people to stay reasonably safe and prevent further setbacks that would come at great loss of life and great damage to our economy. Next question.
This is Erica Meltzer from Chalkbeat. As we see school districts opt for a remote start to the school year, many of them are pointing to the general level of transmission in the community as the reason that it's not safe to bring students back to school. When you look back at some of your decisions around reopening, whether it was opening bars or delaying on the mask order, do you feel, are there things that you would have done differently to create a better environment for opening schools? Or conversely, do you feel like some of these school districts are overreacting and that it is actually, in fact, safe to bring students back to school?
Well, yeah, I think all the work that Coloradans have put in to keep our viral transmission rate low is why it's safer to open schools in Colorado. It is reasonably safe. Many schools are opening. Some are opening with full 5-day schedules. Some districts are doing 2-day schedules. There are districts that, for their own reasons, are delaying the decision and they're beginning out virtually. But yeah, I think the hard work of Coloradans is what has led to an environment where, unlike parts of Texas, much of Florida, it's reasonably safe to open schools. And just as it's reasonably safe to go to the grocery store, it's reasonably safe to go to work. That reflects a lot of sacrifices that Coloradans have made to make schools a safe place to be. And I know that many kids are going to be going back in the coming weeks, including my own.
Governor, good afternoon. Stephen Tubbs with KNUS. I was wondering your reaction to the clearing of Veterans Park yesterday and the incident. If you have any comment, Tay Anderson had said that he was in communication with you text-wise, and over the last week, that's been quite a cleanup from outside the governor's mansion to the extensive stuff that went on yesterday in downtown.
Well, I would say it's a relief, Stephen. Look, I was deeply troubled by the dangerous health situation in that area. I mean, loose needles, there were shootings nearby. I think this is a great step towards protecting our population who's experiencing homeless, protecting visitors to the Capitol, protecting workers who work in the area, both private sector and state. So I really think it was a great an important step by the mayor and by the city of Denver to help make everybody safer, including homeless residents and residents with homes.
Mr. Governor, Charles Ashby from the Grand Junction Daily Sentinel. I have a couple of questions for you, if I may. First of all, what's the status of the CHASA recommendations to opening up high school sports with the school year? And two, and I can't even believe I have to ask this question, but Secretary of State Griswold felt the need to put out a press release to say, yes, Virginia, there will be an election in November. What are your thoughts to what the president said this morning about delaying the election? And what do you say to other states that don't have mail-in voting? Would you recommend that, particularly in a pandemic?
Look, our democracy will not become a casualty of this pandemic. And any suggestion to the contrary is undemocratic, outrageous, and insulting to the constitutional principles of a representative republic that our nation is built on. Of course, we will have a regularly scheduled election. And we look forward to making that as safe as possible and as fair as possible for every American. On CHASA, Charles, can we get back to you later today with that?
Okay, thank you, Governor. But you didn't ask the question about the mail-in voting to other states. Are you recommending that to them? Or they
I always, yeah, okay, sorry. But on CHASA, we're going to get back to you. I'll talk about youth sports for a moment, and then I'll talk about mail. Let me do both. This is not CHASA specific because I need to get back to you on your question. But in general, it's been great to see youth back in sports over summer. At the parks I visited, youth doing soccer and baseball and being able to participate in those leagues in a reasonably safe way. has really been wonderful. It's one of the great advantages because of our success in controlling the virus in Colorado that we've had, where other areas have had to defer or eliminate summer sports for youth. And then we'll get back to you on the CHAZA piece. We voted by mail in Colorado for many years. Even before it was the default way of voting, I voted that way. And many Coloradans, if not most, voted that way. It's been a fixture of our life. It's something we're accustomed to. I would recommend it to any other state without any reservations because it can reduce fraud, it can increase participation, and of course, during a pandemic, it's also a safer way to vote.
Thank you.
Governor, this is Katie Eastman with 9 News. You called clearing out the camps yesterday a great step for public health and safety, but we know that when these camps are cleared out, they are set up somewhere else in another neighborhood. Is it a great idea for them to be swept when the safe outdoor spaces still have not been created in Denver?
I don't think anybody pretends that cleaning up an area that's dangerous solves the issue of homelessness. That takes a deep, bipartisan, regional commitment between the metro mayors in the Colorado Springs area, the Denver area, northern Colorado, western Colorado, to work together with the private sector and housing authorities to find a longer-term solution. However, acting to clean up an area that's dangerous from both a crime perspective as well as a disease perspective rises to the level of urgency that it really needs to be acted upon to protect both residents experience homelessness as well as the general safety of those in the area.
Hi, Governor. Mary Ann Goodland with Colorado Politics. Apologize for the background noise. That's the court hearing that's going on right now. Can you talk about your conversations with the owners of Colorado's sports teams regarding fans being able to attend those events? We heard from Joe Ellis today about some conversations he's been having. So where are you?
Sure. Can you characterize what Joe, I haven't been following it, Mary Ann. Can you characterize what Joe said?
He just said that they've been having conversations with the city and with the governor on how many fans would be allowed at games and how close we are to an announcement on that issue.
Yeah, I would say we are in active conversations with all of the professional sports teams in the area from a public health side, both with the city of Denver as well as the state. I would say the prioritization for the baseball discussions was getting back to be able to play. I think the next step, not just in Colorado, but around the country, is going to be once it can be demonstrated that Major League Baseball is safely able to play, and we certainly wish the Marlins players a full recovery. A number of them have contracted coronavirus, but as long as they're able to carry out a baseball season, that next discussion will be about how can at least some fans return during this season. And what would be those protocols for doing that? Just on a couple specifics on kind of how we look at that. This is not particular to any sports team. It's just so the issue is less the seating. It's relatively easy to imagine how fans in small groups can be 10, 12 feet apart and you can still accommodate thousands of people. The issue will more be around the shared facilities, the restrooms, the refreshments, and then entry and exit. Those would be the areas that any professional sports venue would need to show the exact protocols around making sure that people aren't exposed to one another in too close a way that could lead to a mass spreading event. The seating is easy to envision how that could occur with a reduced crowd, but that the seating alone is not the issue. It's also those other areas.
Hey, Governor, Jesse at the Colorado Sun. Dr. Samet this morning expressed some optimism about the state of rising cases and hospitalizations in Colorado, suggesting that potentially it's leveling off. I'm wondering if you're feeling as optimistic as he is about the current situation and if you're planning on accepting variances from counties again and looking at moving to the next phase of reopening.
Yeah, let's, we give us a few more days here, Jesse. We always welcome good news and we hope there's good news. I didn't get to hear his presentation, but I'm sure he, in some way, or if you asked him, would qualify that by saying we need to see a few more days of data. It's certainly what he's advised us. Look, Coloradans are doing the right thing. Coloradans are smart. I think we're seeing the impact from two changes, Jesse, that is showing up now. One is the statewide mask wearing requirement. And the second is the closing the bars and last call at 10 o'clock. The goal of those policies was to reduce spread of coronavirus. And if I wouldn't have done them, and the state wouldn't have done them if we weren't somewhat confident that they'd produce the result that we hope that they are producing. And but that doesn't mean that we also won't be very satisfied when it does produce that result conclusively. It's too early to say that the mask wearing and closing bars at 10 has conclusively produced this result of substantial decrease in infection rates. But I think we can certainly say we're no longer seeing that same rate of increase that we saw several weeks ago. And we're very hopeful that in the days ahead, these extra measures that Coloradans are taking to stay safe will pay off in terms of making all of our lives a little bit safer and allowing for more robust economic recovery, making sure that teachers and students are safe in school as they return to school, and that ultimately it'll save lives. We can take a final question. Last question, I think, is what I got a text from Maria. So last question. Maybe that was the last question. Good. Well, thank you all so much. Look, we hope that there's good news. And I just want everybody to kind of reflect on these two ways that we have to defeat the virus. We can't let the virus win by taking lives and sending people to the hospital. That overwhelms our ability to serve them. We also can't let the virus win by taking away what makes our lives meaningful. And that means some compromise. It means some sacrifices. I mean, if a big part of your life was going to 4,000 person rodeos, there isn't a safe way that anybody has found to do that. But you can have a picnic with your family at the park, maybe even one other family. You can go ride horses. You can watch your favorite rodeos on television and revisit those old days. Maybe you've saved up and can buy a new saddle. And of course, we'll return to those days where I can go to Rockies games and muchos presidentes de nuestro estado pueden ir al rodeo mexicano o su cosa favorito. Pero hoy no es este día. Today is not that day. And the more careful we are, the sooner that day will return. When we can go out to bars till 1, 2 in the morning, I hope 3, 4 in the morning. That's not going to be me, by the way, but I hope that Coloradans have the freedom to do that soon. And we will work with the legislature to expand those hours of operation for bars in our state so that people can have fun at all hours of day or night, whatever floats your boat. Baseball, Mexican rodeos, drinking at 3 a.m. They're all part of what makes life meaningful for you. And they're all part of what we will have someday, the better that we can do during the sustainable phase of living with the virus and controlling the spread of the virus. Thank you.